Dear audience, welcome to Daily Sun Budget Specials. This is Umaruman Kranti. Today we have Managing Director of PEWell Group, Mr. Noor Khan. Welcome, sir. How are you?
Thank you. Good. How are you?
I'm fine. So, sir, private investment has stagnated in recent years. Do the current tax incentives and reforms in the budget go far enough to restore investor confidence?
Right. So let me just go a little bit back and then answer your question. If you look at the budget, I have not had a lot of time to take a look, but so far what I have read and looked, how is this different from last budget? If in terms of everything, not just investment, we have our usual budget every year. This time it seems like it's almost the exact same thing, maybe a little bit here more, maybe a little bit here less, a little bit tax here, no tax there, exemptions there. So seems like I was expecting after July Revolution, this is the first budget. So this will be like a complete reform budget that has a very specific target that shows the reforms that we are looking for. Reforms in private sector, in government sector, in tax, manufacturing base, production, raw material imports, and also the export market. So I was looking for a holistic approach but with a targeted, some target segment. For example, last government or the regime we had. Let's not get into the debate if it was abused or not. But if you look, they had Digital Bangladesh. And then you had the ICT ministry made, and then you put a lot of budget there, and you made projects. If we do not get into the debate of if you got the return on investment on those, that's a different story. But they did have a focus. So I was looking for something like that in this budget, in that tune, not exactly that the government has a specific focus given, everything is getting reorganized. Maybe the manufacturing base. I was looking I always think that if the government focus on manufacturing base, that's when the investment will come in. The investment you are talking about, a lot of the investment, big scale investment are mostly in manufacturing sectors, especially like a country in Bangladesh. So I have not seen anything so far that shows that, they have targeted that investment should go up. For that to happen, either you provide specific cash incentive. As far as I know, ICT cash incentive has not been renewed, which was a major focus for last 15 years, and we invested a lot of money in ICT sector. So suddenly taking off the cash incentive doesn't really help anyone. There has to be logic behind that why we are not providing cash incentive anymore. I talked to someone who mentioned that a lot of money laundering has been done through this cash incentive because it's services. It's easier to show that services has been rendered or exported, which is not true maybe. If that's the case, then they have to come up with some mechanism where you stop laundering money, not the cash incentive. You do not stop doing that. You see what I mean?
Yeah. Large-scale allocations toward infrastructure and energy likely to crowd in or crowd out private sector investment in the near term.
I think the overall allocation towards energy and infrastructure has actually gone down in this budget a little bit, because most of those mega projects are not happening anymore, right? And the government doesn't have that huge infrastructure projects that earlier government took, which I like. A lot of the earlier mega projects did not make sense. Some of them did, a lot of them did not. So if the investment on these or the allocations on these sectors has gone down, I don't think the whole crowd in or crowd out factor is the point. I think rather the point should be, there were huge budget in these sectors. The amount it has gone down, it's not by much. So my question is, where are we spending all this money? We have talked about power sector, the power generation, captive charges. So I would like to know about that if we are moving forward, are we paying captive charges? In the budget, how much we have allocated for captive charges? What is the plan for the government to phase out captive charges, right? Same thing for infrastructure. If we already have a project running, do we have budget for that, to finish that? Because there's no point having spent a lot of money in a project for last 10, 15 years, regardless of what has happened then. Now you suddenly stop and the entire project stops. And then you do not get any return on the investment you have already done for last couple of years, right? Yeah. So that's what I was looking into. In terms of crowding in, I don't think there will be a lot of crowding in the energy sector because there were things done. Like if you look at the electricity production since last 20, 25 years, it has steadily gone up. I know the government has a specific plan on renewable energy, which is a good thing. Unfortunately, the renewable energy tenders that has come up in last couple of months, there were not enough bidders. They had to reschedule it over and over again.
So, with increased spending and subsidies in several sectors, could the fiscal expansion itself fuel further inflationary pressure?
I think so, yeah. I mean, inflation is a big problem since forever, right? Since COVID, once the entire supply chain was broken, even if the other countries, I think through their monetary policy, they have made, handled it better. I think we have not done such a good job since COVID, right? Because our interest rate was set as like 6 to 7%, that's it, which I always thought was crazy. Like, how do you set interest rate? It has to be supply and demand and investment and savings curves. So we are already in pressure in terms of inflation. So I think one thing the governor and the finance advisor has in mind, looking at the budget so far I have looked into, that this is something they did address in places. They put in certain mechanism to fight inflation, or rather I should say not to make it worse. That's what they have tried to do. It's to be seen what happens exactly, once a couple of months passes and then we have the data.
Yeah. So the budget does not seem to have direct price control mechanisms. Should there have been more targeted measures for controlling food and energy prices?
Yeah, that's a catch-22 situation, because in a free market economy, you do not want the control. Yeah. That's what we want, right, ideally. But then we are not in an ideal scenario in Bangladesh, especially after the revolution and everything. We are sort of still figuring things out. So yeah, food security is a major point. Energy security is a major point. So I think they should have addressed it better in terms of how to control the prices if inflation goes out of hand, and then because these two things you cannot live without. Other things you can actually control and curb. Yes. Energy and food you need regardless. Yes. So yeah, maybe some approach to control prices, not maybe directly. Some indirect approach would have been nice.
Okay, so what are the risks that inflation and stagnant wages may erode the impact of welfare and cash transfer programs introduced in this budget?
Honestly, I have not looked into the entire thing to answer, exactly what are the risks are, right? But as I said before, I think I will say the same thing. Since COVID, inflation, we are always struggling to curb inflation everywhere. I think last month's data was 9%, which is really high, given, bank interest is 9%. So if you put in your money in the bank and you are getting 9% and inflation is 9%, at the end of the day, you are not making anything. So as I said, the potential risks are there, but because they have taken some measures in the budget to curb inflation, that is to be seen what happens. But policy-wise, I think they're trying it through the bond market and interest rate. I guess one of the major problems which has not been addressed in the budget so far is the capital market scenario is very bad. Capital market is one of the key mechanisms in the entire macroeconomic scenario. So I think that should have been addressed better. If that was addressed, that would, and even in our capital market, we do not have a futures market, which is by itself is a problem. So I think it's to be seen what happens.
Yeah, so if you could recommend us one key adjustment to this budget, and what would it be to make it more inclusive or sustainable?
One key thing is always hard to point out. I think for Bangladesh, not just this budget, any budget, I think one thing we ignore always, I don't know why, is manufacturing sector in Bangladesh. I think we should focus on our manufacturing sector rather than like last 15 years we were focused on ICD, which is great, that's needed as well. But I think Bangladesh has so much potential in manufacturing that needs more focus on the budget in terms of importing capital machineries, raw material, export incentive as well. Like every time manufacturers who gets the most benefit out of the budget are garment industry, which is already established. It's been a while, they're getting all the benefits. They still should continue getting that, but we should come up with new industry and segments where we intensify and encourage entrepreneurs to come in and start getting into manufacturing.
Yeah, thank you so much for your insights, sir. So, dear viewers, stay with us for more updates.
For more updates, follow us on Facebook, subscribe our YouTube channel, get the latest update on www.daily-sun.com.